And so we bid adieu. I've been waiting for a long time to say that. We bid adieu to adieu. Lots of talk, so much time spent over the last couple of weeks talking about Adou Thiero, the transfer from Kentucky who left the Wildcats looking for an opportunity to be used in a different way, looking for something that fit him a little bit better than the way he was being used in John Calipari's system, is now off the transfer market, going to Arkansas where he will play in John Calipari's system. Thiero projected as a 2 or a 3 or a 4, probably could do any number of those things at Pitt. I think, Pitt being one of the main schools that he was looking at, Pitt could have provided, I think was providing him with an offer to play in a role that would have the ball in his hands a little bit more. He'd be a little bit more featured, like I say, maybe as a 2, maybe as a 3, maybe as a 4, moving around to different positions, being used in different ways in a prominent featured role. A bit of a change from what he was doing at Kentucky, and presumably he went into the transfer portal looking for a bit of a change from what he was doing at Kentucky. Maybe the change he needed or was looking for in leaving Kentucky was wearing red as opposed to wearing blue. Although, as with so many things in the transfer portal, it's pretty likely that the main color involved here was green. Nevertheless, it doesn't matter why Adou Thiero decided to transfer to Arkansas. For our purposes, all that's relevant is that he is not transferring to Pitt. The Panthers made a pretty good go of it. I think they made a pretty good run at landing Thiero and had a pretty good opportunity to do so. But, there are motivations in the transfer portal. We've seen plenty of examples of this over the course of the last, certainly this offseason, but you could even go back further. I think there are plenty of instances, and we've talked about it a lot on the football side of players who are, what their motivation is, what they're going to accomplish, what they're hoping to accomplish, and what's realistic in their new situation, comparing the situation they walked away from to the situation they're going to. And, a lot of times when it comes down to it, guys are making decisions for money. And I don't hold that against anyone. I would make decisions for money. I do make decisions for money. And so there's nothing wrong with that as a motivation. But just, I think it's okay to be honest about it. I think it's okay to say, I'm transferring to the school because I get along with the coaches. Seems like a nice place, and the trees are tall and the girls are pretty and all that stuff. But you know what? They gave me the best NIL offer, and so, hey man, highest bidder. So here I am. What team am I playing for again? No, I kid. Just having a little bit of fun. Because we all know what the situation is, right? We all know we all know what the transfer portal is all about, what NIL is all about. We've been through this for 3 years now. I think the transfer portal era started in the summer of 2021. And, so it's 21, that offseason after the 21 season, after the 22 season, after the 23 season. We're in basically the third real year of this transfer portal NIL behemoth. And we keep seeing more and more decisions being made for those reasons. But as I say, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter why Adou Thiero is going to Arkansas, just like it doesn't matter why Deion Hayes went into the transfer portal or Solomon DeShields or any of these. Like that part of it doesn't matter. Because at this point, we just have to look forward and say what's next for Pitt. So with Thiero off the board, Pitt still has 2 open scholarship spots. What is Jeff Capel going to try to get? What will he try to add? What will he want to add? And maybe most importantly, and this is the real opinion part on our opinion piece on our part, is what do they need to add? What does Pitt need this season? I'll give you a hint. It's more than just a banger down low, because they actually already got a banger down low. We'll talk about all of it. What Pitt needs from the remainder of the transfer portal, what they could do with those final 2 scholarship spots here on the Tuesday edition of the Morning Pitt on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. I don't know if anyone ever actually said a banger down low, and if they did, I doubt that they said it in that voice. But I like saying that, a banger down low. Got to get a banger down low. I don't know if anyone has ever actually claimed that Pitt needs a banger down low, but it's sort of like the sentiment behind that phrase sort of seems to sum up what a lot of Pitt fans have been clamoring for a long time. And I think to some extent, for some fans, they've been clamoring for a banger down low for so long that they missed when Pitt got a banger down low in Cam Corhen, the transfer from Florida State. And I tell you, we had these 2 interviews with Jeff Capel. I mean, one interview that we split into 2 videos. We did the one on Friday and one yesterday. And I think it was great because I think Capel answered a lot of questions that people have. Not necessarily something you would ask directly, like, what about this? What about that? But when I asked him to talk about Cam Corhen, I didn't ask him specifically, like, Jeff, this guy, he had 25 and 8 against you guys, but he only had like 3 games with double-digit rebounds last year. Scored double-digit points in like half the games. It's not like he's a 9 and 4 type of guy. Is that really what you need at center? I didn't ask him that. I just said, you saw Cam play here at the Peterson Events Center and put up 25 and 8 on you guys. Is that all you needed to see? He said no. There was a lot more to it. And I thought one really interesting thing, and I don't know if you caught this quote, and I should have pointed it out yesterday, but he said that as they were scouting Florida State in advance of that game this season, they were hearing rumors that Leonard Hamilton might retire, and Capel said he said to his staff, look, if that happens, if Leonard Hamilton retires and this guy, Cam Corhen, goes into the transfer portal, like, this is the guy I want. Like, this is my number 1 guy that I want to get to add to this roster. I thought that was really, really interesting. Yeah, I mean, there's always, there's always like coach and administrative speak. We got our number 1 guy. This was our number 1 guy on the board. This was the guy we wanted above all else. Never mind all the guys that turned us down or the guys we weren't able to draft or the guys we couldn't land or whatever it was. This was our number 1 guy. But I think there's some truth to what Capel says. I just thought that was a really interesting part where he talked about how he was scouting Cam Corhen and really prioritized him. But I didn't ask, like, I mean, Jeff, he only averaged like 9 and 4. Like, is this guy really your answered center? Is he going to give you much more? And so he talked a lot about what Cam Corhen does really well. Like, I didn't ask that, but Capel went into discussion at length about Cam Corhen's strengths and how they fit with where Pitt was maybe lacking last year. 2-point field goal percentage offense, offensive putbacks, and he said that there was one other. I'm drawing a blank on what that third one was. But he said that those were areas where Cam Corhen was one of the best in the country. He talked about how the rebounding numbers were low because a lot of Florida State, they would always switch and they would rotate. And so he ended up away from the basket more. And then they also rotated their subs a lot. And that was just how they played. So, average 9 and 4 playing 21 minutes per game. And this staff, like we've talked about a bunch of times, has been pretty good at projecting guys who do something well, but they're not doing it all that much. And so, with the belief that if you give them more opportunity, they're going to, you can take those projections and expand them, to sort of account for more playing time. And also, if you don't switch as much, you keep them closer to the basket, the rebounding numbers will go up. And so I think they did get the banger down low. And I think they also got a banger down low last year with Papa Conte. All right, and I know Conte missed the entire season with a knee injury, but a couple of thoughts on that. One, I mean, like an ACL injury is not the death sentence. It hasn't been like a 2-year injury for a long time. I mean, Nike Sabandi suffered that one, and that was right near the beginning of the right at the beginning. That was the preseason game, right? The exhibition game. Or maybe the first game of the season, whatever it was, and he was back by the next year. Now, I mean, it took him a little bit of time to get back up to speed, but, Conte's injury happened earlier in the fall, and so he should be even more advanced than, further along than Sabandi was with that injury a couple of years ago. So that's one, that I'm not as concerned about the injury situation, and two is that when you talk to, I mean, you heard Jeff Capel during the conversation we had with him, and when you talk to other people around Pitt, the expectations are pretty high. And what's great is because they have Corhen, you don't need Papa Conte to play 28 minutes per game. You don't need him to go out and average 11 and 8 or something like that. You need him to be your backup center, your number 2 center. And so some people on Twitter yesterday were saying, like, I just can't believe we're going to go with Guillermo as the center again. Guillermo Diaz-Graham will be like the number 3 center. So your number 3 center, the guy who rotates in there just for a few minutes per game playing center, is also a 40% three-point shooter. So, I mean, picture this if you will. You start the game with Cam Corhen, you rotate in Papa Conte, and most of the game is spent with one of those two guys banging down low and getting the rebounds and getting offensive putbacks and creating a post presence offensively and defensively. And then for a few minutes a game, maybe a few minutes a half even, all of a sudden you move Guillermo in from the 4 to the 5. And now he's playing there. And now that center who's been banging down low with Cam Corhen and Papa Conti is now chasing Guillermo out to the 3-point line. Versatility. And if you find that you've got a really good matchup there you can take advantage of, you do it even more. You know what I mean? You play him even more if that's what the matchup favors, because now you've got the versatility to do those different things. So we're going to talk about what they need, right? That's what we're talking about today, is what they still need to add. But I think it starts there with that conversation. I think they're good with centers. Now, they've got 2 scholarship spots available. They have 11 scholarships accounted for so far. They have 2 scholarship spots available. I think to some extent the coaches will take a bit of a best player available approach. And maybe that best player available is a center. I'm guessing that won't be the case, or I'm guessing they won't be able to get that guy. You can't rule out any possibility. So it's possible they could get another center there. I doubt that one of the last 2 spots will go to a center who contributes. It's just sort of my guess. I think they're set there. I think they're largely set at guard as well, with Jalen Lowe and Ishmael Leggett coming back, Damian Dunn joining as a transfer from Houston, which, I mean, if you heard Jeff Capel talk, I think it was on yesterday's half of the interview, I mean, he's really high on what Damian Dunn can do. Multiple comparisons to Jamarius Burton as a big guard who can pick his spots and find his shot and get to spots. Defense, obviously a very good defensive guard. I think there's a lot to like, because that was an element they didn't have last year. I think Ishmael Leggett was a decent defender. I think by the end of the year, Bub Carrington was a really good defensive guard, but they didn't have a big physical guard. I know Bub Carrington got pretty big, but he wasn't necessarily, big in the way that Jamarius Burton was big, or physical in the way that Burton was physical. And that's what Dunn is going to be. So you got a guy who can probably shoot a little bit better, at least shoot from 3 better than Burton, can defend as well, if not better than Burton, has that same sort of physical build, so he can kind of bully his way around on both ends of the court, kind of like Burton did. I mean, that's a heck of an addition. I said this before, and I'll say it again, that I think if you look at the guard situation right now on May 7th, fast forward even, let's say they don't add any more guards. Let's say the guard situation on August 7th right now. No. Yeah. Compared to the guard situation on August 7th last year, I think you feel miles better about it right now, or on August 7th, 2024 than you did on August 7th, 2023. Now, obviously, by the end of the year, those freshmen who were unknowns last year, you felt great about those guys. But they're going into this year with Jalen Lowe as a sophomore, Ishmael Leggett having played a year at this level, Damian Dunn, who played a year at the Power Conference level, in addition to playing at Temple before that. And then you're bringing in, the freshmen who will probably play a decent amount, I would think, who they probably will rely on to a certain extent. Maybe not as much as they relied on Carrington and Lowe last year, but the freshman coming in, I think, is really talented. I think we're all going to spend a lot of time talking about Jalen Lowe, and we're going to talk about Ishmael Leggett, and we're going to talk about Damian Dunn, and we're going to talk about those guys a lot. And Brandon Cummings is just going to sneak up and impress. I think he's going to be really good. Is he going to be on the level of Carrington or Lowe last year? I'm not going to set the expectations there, not because I'm limiting him, just because I think it's unfair to say, oh, he's going to be the next Bub Carrington. Well, I don't know about all that, but I think he's going to be really good. And so I think they're good at guard. And I think most people would agree that 1 and 5, and really 1, 2, and 5, those 3 positions are more or less covered. I don't think they need anything out of the transfer portal to fill those spots. Now, if the best player available is a point guard or a shooting guard or a center, and they're able to get that guy, then yes, they will go for it. But I don't think that's the priority. But you probably already knew that, and you assumed it as well. So the priority is at the 3 and the 4. And I think the priority is there for a few reasons. Primarily, right now they've got 3 guys to play those 2 spots. And Zach Austin, Jorge Diaz-Graham, and Guillermo Diaz-Graham. Austin pretty much exclusively at the 3. Guillermo pretty much exclusively at the 4, although he can play some 5. Jorge potentially 3 or 4. And then, I mean, you have Marlon Barnes and Amni Njai coming in. I don't know. I don't know what you expect from those guys. I'm not going to put any expectations on them at all. Right now, I'm sitting here saying that the depth and the rotation at the 3 spot and the 4 spot are going to come from Austin, Diaz-Graham, and a transfer or 2. And let's just say 1 transfer. Let's not get greedy and say they're going to bring in 2 more like contributing top line rotation players out of the transfer portal. Let's just say they're going to bring in 1, okay? And there'll be that extra scholarship spot for a high school kid who falls into their laps or whatever it may be, a walk-on, it doesn't matter. A 3 or a 4. There's a part of me that still believes, and a lot of fans don't want to go for the idea, but there's a part of me that still believes if Pitt goes into the season with Guillermo Diaz-Graham as the starting 4 and Jorge Diaz-Graham as his primary backup, the coaches will be okay with that. Realistically. I think they would like to get another 4. I think they would like to get another 4 that could platoon and play with and rotate with Guillermo at the 4, and Jorge could then be the backup to Zach Austin at the 3. But I think if it came down that they just couldn't find it, the one other guy they're able to add is more of a small forward, more of a wing, more of a 3. And I shouldn't say more of a wing because they view the 4 as a wing as well. But if the guy they're able to get is more of a 3, then I think they're comfortable going with Guillermo and Jorge. And you might look at it and be like, are you kidding me? Guillermo Diaz-Graham as the 4, the starting 4, playing 28 minutes, 32 minutes or something like that? You're going to replace Blake Hinson with him? Well, more and more over the course of the spring, I've come around on the idea. Guillermo Diaz-Graham is a 40% three-point shooter. He was second on the team in three-point shooting percentage behind Blake Hinson last year by just a couple of percentage points. He's not going to make 105 or 110 or three-pointers like Blake Hinson did, but nobody on the team is going to make that many. Most players in the country aren't going to make that many. I think Jeff Capel made an interesting point when we had that conversation with him that, they're not going to have one guy replace Blake Hinson, but they've got enough good shooters, that Jalen can shoot. Damian Dunn can shoot. Ishmael Leggett can shoot. Zach Austin can shoot. I've pointed out that in the final 5 regular season games last year, he was like 7 of 14 from 3. So you tell me, that's only 7 threes over 5 games. Well, you don't necessarily need him making 4 threes a game. If he makes 7 threes every 5 games, I think you're okay. I think that's solid. That's solid production from him. And then obviously Guillermo can shoot the 3 and Jorge can shoot the 3. Cam Corhen can step out and shoot the 3 if you really need that. But I think they believe that they'll have the shooting they need to be effective, to be an effective 3-point shooting team and create some space for Cam Corhen down low to do more. But I'm getting off topic. What do they need? They need a 4 or a 3. Whichever one they can find, they'll go for. I think if they can find a quality 4, they would take that. If they can find a quality 3, they would take that. Now, it's just a question of who they're going to find. And I think that's the role that Thiero was going to play if he came to Pitt, as either the starter or top backup at one of those 2 spots, the 3 or the 4. And he would ultimately move around. There would be times where he might be the off-ball guard. It wouldn't be a shock. I think they were intent. I think they had every intention of using him that way and told him as such, and I think that's what he wanted to do. And we'll see if he ends up doing that at Arkansas, but not to bring it all the way full circle in our conversation we've already had. But I think they ultimately wanted Thiero to fill in as a 3 or a 4 and kind of move around those wing spots. Now they're going to be looking for another guy who can fit there. Ideally, it's somebody who can shoot. I think that's going to be one of the priorities, is finding a 3 or a 4 who's got some shooting. Defense obviously would be important. I think they feel good about where they're going to be rebounding-wise with Cam Corhen rebounding. I think Zach Austin can put up some solid rebounding numbers. Ishmael Leggett was obviously a very good rebounder. And then I think they'll expect Damian Dunn and Jalen Lowe to get some rebounds as well. Bub Carrington was sort of a I don't know if it was all that sneaky. He averaged like 5 rebounds per game. I don't know if they're going to have another guard in addition to Leggett who averages 5 rebounds per game, but they might not need it if they've got Cam Corhen putting up better rebounding numbers than they got out of the center position last year. Pitt wasn't a bad rebounding team last year. They were like 3rd in the ACC in rebounding margin. So they were a solid rebounding team, put up good numbers and good stats. This year, I think they'll be able to get more rebounds out of the center position. But they do want to fill in that 3 and that 4. And that's what we're really going to be watching here over the next couple days, couple weeks. I don't know how long it's going to take to find that replacement. But that's what we're going to be watching is who they get to step in there. And whether it's more of a 4, more of a 3, or maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe those wing spots are interchangeable enough that it could be Guillermo, it could be Jorge, it could be Zach Austin, it could be this incoming transfer. But that's a priority. That's what they're looking for. Now it's just a hunt for names for the coaches and for us, right? As we all try and figure it out. But we bid adieu to Adou. We bid adieu to today's podcast. We bid adieu to today's video. We bid adieu to the start of the week. Is there anything else we can bid adieu to? I'm going to bid adieu to this cup of coffee and move on with our day. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, and check out the website Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com to never miss any of our Pitt sports content. Thanks for tuning in today. Don't forget we'll have our live show tomorrow night. We'll have our mailbag on Friday and lots of good stuff in between. So thank you for tuning in. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch up with you tomorrow on the Morning Pit right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.